Let's dive in.
So Jonathan's thread kicks off with just one person, and then it just branches out from there. Our goal here is pretty simple. We're just going to follow his trail of breadcrumbs. We'll look at the sources he provides and try to see the full picture that he's painting for us. And here's our starting point, Bishop Robert Stearns. According to Jonathan, Stearns was one of the original directors at an organization you might have heard of, Christians United for Israel, or COFI for short. And just for context, it's a major pro-Israel advocacy group in the U.S.
Okay, so Jonathan uses this post right here to give us some initial context. You can see it has a quote that's attributed to Stearns. It talks about his views and mentions his connection to a group described as Serving Zion. This is basically the first piece of the puzzle he lays out for us.
So from Stearns, the thread immediately pivots to the organization itself, CUFI. And then, from there, it goes straight to its founder. Let's take a look at how Jonathan connects these dots.
And to support that first connection, Jonathan includes this source. It shows that, yep, Robert Stearns was one of the original directors of Christians United for Israel. So that's the formal link to the organization right there.
Okay, so now that the link between Stearns and CUFI is on the table, the thread brings in the next key person in this chain, Pastor John Hagee. Jonathan points to him as the founder of the whole organization.
And just like before, Jonathan includes this source for John Hagee. It notes his role as the founder of CUFI. So this kind of solidifies Hagee's spot in this network that's being built out.
Now, this next part is really a key moment in Jonathan's thread. This one statement creates 3 new links all at once. First, it connects John Hagee to an organization called Im Tirtzu. Then, it connects Im Tirtzu to its founder, a guy named Ronen Shoval. And finally, it connects Ronen Shoval to another organization called the Tikva Fund. A lot happening right there.
And that brings us to the Tikva Fund. As we're about to see, this organization becomes a really central hub in the whole network Jonathan is laying out.
So, just to quickly recap this part of the chain, according to Jonathan's thread, John Hagee is a major donor to Im Tirtzu, and the founder of Im Tirtzu, Ronen Shoval, is also the dean of the Tikva Fund. You see how that connects? So, Jonathan provides these materials right here to show the link. You've got Ronen Shoval connected to both Im Tirtzu and the Tikva Fund, which visually establishes the connection that he's making between this one person and these 2 different groups.
Okay, now we're getting to an individual who, in Jonathan's thread, really acts as a major connector for a lot of these different pieces. His name is Elliot Abrams.
So Jonathan points out 2 key roles for Elliot Abrams. First, he's the chairman of the Tikva Fund, the one we were just talking about. And second, he's a director at another organization, the National Endowment for Democracy, or NED. And for those who don't know, that's a U.S. nonprofit that gets most of its funding from the U.S. Congress.
The thread then dives into some background on Abrams, specifically his long history in U.S. foreign policy. And this career history is pretty important because it's the context for the next set of connections that Jonathan makes.
Yeah, Jonathan's thread lists several specific points about Abrams' record. It says he was involved in Iran-Contra, that he pled guilty to withholding information from Congress, it identifies him as a chief architect of the Iraq War, and that he was later named a special representative for both Iran and Venezuela.
Okay, and this is where the thread takes a pretty significant turn. Jonathan connects Elliot Abrams and the National Endowment for Democracy, the NED, to a series of events that happened in Los Angeles.
Using this exact language, the thread draws a direct line from the network we've been tracing so far, specifically Elliot Abrams and the NED, to what it calls a coordinated LA arson attack and land grab.
And in connection with these LA events, Jonathan puts forward this really extensive list of organizations. I mean, it's a huge range. You've got government-affiliated groups like the CIA and DARPA, big private companies like Kaiser Permanente and State Farm, and political organizations. And he positions all of them as part of this network.
To back up this part of the narrative, Jonathan includes these other social media posts in his thread. And if you look, they mention several of the people and organizations we just saw, all within the context of these LA events.
The thread then names these 5 specific people, linking them to the National Endowment for Democracy and, by extension, to the events in LA. They are Karen Bass, Kenneth Wallach, Peter J. Roskam, Elise Stefanik, and Ben Sass. So, wow, how do all of these pieces fit together? Let's just take a quick step back and look at the entire chain of connections Jonathan laid out, from the very beginning to the very end.
And here it is. This is the complete path laid out in the thread. It all starts with Robert Stearns. That leads to Sufi and John Hagee, which then connects to Tirtzu and the Tikva Fund. From there, the link is made to Elliot Abrams and the NED, and the whole thing culminates by connecting this entire network to those events in Los Angeles.
So when you look at it all together, what Jonathan has really constructed here is a narrative. It's a story that flows from figures connected to Christian Zionism, moves through organizations tied to neoconservative foreign policy, and then ultimately links them to specific events happening right here at home.